Kia ora and welcome to CIO Leadership Live. I'm your host, Kathy O'Sullivan, editor for CIO New Zealand. And my guest today is Ray Liu, General Manager for IT at Green Cross Health. Hello, Ray. How are you going today?
Yeah, very great. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for inviting me on this discussion.
Great. I'm glad you could be here. So to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit more about your role at Green Cross Health and what your team does there?
Sure. So Green Cross Health, as an organisation, we are a New Zealand organisation listed on the stock exchange. We're comprised of three business divisions. So there's a pharmacy division, 350 pharmacies under the Unichem and Life Pharmacy brand across the country. We've got 54 medical centres spread across the country as well under the Doctors brand. And then we've also got Access Community Health, which has a workforce of several thousand supporting, providing in-home care to many patients across New Zealand. And the IT team is first and foremost responsible for looking after all of the systems that the group uses across all of the different divisions, and also supporting the vendors that support us as well across all of that. And my role is to support our IT teams to be able to deliver that service. And at the same time, we are halfway into a major transformation program where we're actually changing a lot of our key systems, including our loyalty platform, key product management systems. We've just launched the pharmacy app. And so we've got a number of projects that are under that whole transformation program.
So a wide-ranging role, and as you've mentioned there, you're undergoing a lot of transformation at the moment, and transformation can be a dirty word. It's thrown around, as if it's something that's easy to do, that it's just a given within organizations. But in reality, it is hard yakka. So can you tell us a little bit more about how transformation has taken shape in your own career?
Yeah. I think the biggest learning, in IT projects and transformation programs for me personally is that IT can't do it on its own, and you certainly shouldn't be an isolated business unit. One of the biggest things for me is I think IT needs to first and foremost listen and engage with the stakeholders and system users and end customers. How do you know what to change if you don't know what's the problem, right? And I think more of late, I talk a lot about business-led transformation, and I want to probably explain that a little bit, and it's really focused on involving stakeholders right from the start and involving them on the change in that journey, right? And I absolutely advocate for business stakeholders to play a role in any transformation program right from the start. Get involved in system selection process, designing systems, designing process changes, right through to the build phase, testing, implementation. Be involved right through that journey, because I think the most important thing is if you involve the people that the change that they'll involve the people that will actually use the change early on. There shouldn't be any surprises right when you get to it. And for me personally, that's the biggest learning that I've gained out of delivering projects in the past.
So great having those stakeholders involved, but walking back from that end point as well of transformation, what are the kind of starting points or things that you think about that are useful to kick off a why you must transform?
Yeah, and look, I think change programs can often be daunting and come across as a long, arduous process, and that often risks losing sight of the original goals and objectives. So for me, that is the starting point. Actually, is working hard with the team to be really clear on the problem you're trying to solve up front, and it's not a set of wishy-washy statements. It's actually being really crystal clear what that is. And if I just look at some of the work that we try to do here, it's actually being clear on, when we want to put appointment bookings for doctors online, like, what is that we actually trying to solve there? Are we trying to free up more phone time for in clinic? When we talk about we want to send more personalized offers on our loyalty program, what does that mean? Are we sending too much spam, or people not actually getting the things that are relevant for them? Or when we talk about actually we want to get new products up online for sale within 24 hours, it's actually getting really crisp problem statements up front, so we know what we're trying to achieve in any pieces of work we're trying to do. And then along the way, it's actually about keeping the program focused on those objectives and making decisions along the way that achieve those objectives, and just being clear and helping clear any obstacles that come along.
And I'm glad that you've spoken about obstacles, because, it is challenging. Transforming any organization or any part of any organization can be challenging. So what are some of those kind of common roadblocks that come up that, CIOs should be mindful of along the way?
Yeah, I think as a CIO, you need to keep the ship heading in the right direction. Is one of the really important things. And I think it's actually important that you spend a bit of time up front to get those problem statements and requirements clear and well understood, and get your business stakeholders involved in that early step, because they're the experts for the business at the end of the day. It's not IT, and they need to be the ones that help actually set that direction. And as a CIO, then one of your jobs is to help the programs of work stay on course and course correct when it starts to deviate, or help solve some of those obstacles along the way. So and actually keep everyone informed on that. And I think the other thing too is any good change program takes time, and change programs could go on for years in some cases, and that's where keeping the team well informed and communicated is really, really important. Communication plays a really important part. And this is where, as a CIO, you need to create a good forum where transparency and communication is held really highly, and everybody is well aligned and in sync, and they know everybody is clear on, hey, that's what team A is doing, team B is doing, and we're all trying to achieve this goal together as one. So that whole alignment as a team and keeping everybody heading in the right direction, in my view, is one really important things to overcome some of these obstacles and challenges of any programs of work.
Absolutely. Communication is always key. So I'm curious then, Ray, how do you view transformation? Do you like to see it as a project with, deadlines and milestones and celebrating the wins along the way? Or is transformation just an ongoing development now within a business? Is there ever an end date to transformation?
Yeah, if you ask finance, you can't spend forever, and you must have an end date on everything. But look, my view is that transformation programs, large or small, you've got to at least set an MVP or a foundation with an end date, right? And particularly on large programs of work, you can't just set we're going to get something in 2 years' time, and it's a surprise. Here it is. It tends to not go well when it's a surprise that way. And in my view, you've got to try and be really clear and set that foundation block. Here are the key features or key capabilities that we've got to get out into the market or into our customer's hand or into our business and using as a first off. And it's got to be MVP. It's got to have value, and you've got to set a hard date on that to get to that point. Because what that will do is it gets the business excited. It gets them involved early on, and then you can then have the right to do more. It's no good if you just set a massive multi-year journey and you get nothing along the way. It's too hard. And so that's exactly the kind of approach that we've taken here at Green Cross is how do we go and break our transformation programs down into smaller goals and objectives and have regular cadence of actually achieving some of that, and how do we break up a program into multi-phases. So I think, yes, I think we should be setting dates and businesses change, right? Our priorities change, and actually, the goal you set in 3 years' time may not be reality, right? Big old COVID comes along, and what everyone set up at the end of 2019 was no longer the priority in 2020, right? So you've got to have achievables along the way, and be flexible enough to change tack as you go.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that, the importance of stakeholder engagement and working with the business. So can you tell us, as GM for IT, in what ways you collaborate and influence, the rest of the organization and the leadership team?
I think for me, it's one of the things I hold highly is it's important to align technology decisions to business objectives. And I keep that front of mind. And so I make a priority to make sure I understand what's going on in the business. What are our priorities? How our frontline staff, in the health sector, what are our frontline staff? How are they doing? What are the challenges they're facing? What do they need? And why are your customers? Why do they want to do business with you? You've got to understand those things to be able to bring new ideas to the table, right? It's got to be relevant ideas. You can't just go completely outside of your realm. But once you understand those elements, it's a lot easier conversation when you're talking to marketing, or when you're talking to pharmacy operations or medical operations, and you're trying to bring ideas and influence their decisions. Is you've got to relate it back to what matters to them. And then it's a lot easier to talk through technology changes, or I've got a new solution I want to introduce to medical. It's got to align to how it'll impact or benefit the end users and the business division.
I love that view. What matters to them, and using IT through that lens. So the role of CIO is evolving. There's a lot more titles that now encompass that CIO role, from Chief Technology Officer, Chief Digital Officer, GM for IT. But what are the key attributes, do you think, of a successful modern day CIO when it comes to leadership? Probably, for me, I think communication's got to be right at the top. And as a CIO, it's no longer good enough to just talk technology. I think actually, for me, I try to not throw around technical jargon at any opportunity that I can. It's you've got to recognize the audience you're talking to, and adapt and change your communication style, right, for all levels, and be able to explain complex problems in different ways. Perhaps my consulting background has helped to be able to talk through those complex problems in different ways. But for me, communication and the change in the way that you communicate as a CIO is very different now, in my opinion. Probably the second point is, CIOs, you deal with many different stakeholders, and quite often you're in crisis situations, or you're trying to solve some P1 issue, or there's hard conversations sometimes you have to front, and you've got to be able to learn to read your audience, right, and think about how you can help them. Right, it's important to adjust and think about that aspect. And then I think probably another key attribute is you can't do it on your own as a CIO, and so it's very important in my view is that you start to prioritize helping your teams solve problems and set goals themselves, and actually be a servant to that. You can't do it on your own as one person. You're running a bigger team. You're supporting IT across a group, and it's your teams that do the work, not you. Yeah, and teams are fundamental, aren't they? I mean, there is such a demand at the moment. There's a lot of roles out there, and not enough people to fill them. So how are you creating that internal culture that really helps your people thrive?
Yeah, well, IT resources, or just IT skill sets, are just in such hot demand out there. And one of the things that I recognise is that I guess the bigger players are more well known in the market for IT roles, but any IT team, I think you've got to help your team feel like they're part of the business, and they feel like they're part of the things that they do on a day-to-day basis is helping to achieve the business goals and objectives as a whole. So don't help your teams come out of their IT back office, bring them first and foremost front of mind in the office. I mean, my IT team sits right in the middle of the office, and everyone can walk in and see them. And in my view, I think when you set these big audacious goals as a business, you got to get everybody behind it and make it really clear, help explain what they are, and people buy into it and understand it, and set achievable goals that add up to those big audacious goals. And it helps people attach themselves to that. I think that's really important. And it's, if I think about myself and my role, I want to make sure I understand that, right? And I can attach my role to those big audacious goals. Yeah, I think the other thing too is when, as people develop in their roles, they're going to start thinking, well, what's next for me? They want a sense of achievement in their current role, and then think about what's next. So it's important to put together processes and that can actually help your staff through that process, and give timely feedback. I don't believe in twice a year or once a year reviews. I believe in review on the spot, and small corrections along the way, or small feedback along the way, is much better than a 6-monthly performance review, in my view. And help people plan out some big goals in a 12 to 18 month time frame, not so much too far into the future where you can't be crystal clear on what those goals could be. So I think it's a few of those things kind of adding up together that I try and make sure that our team here at Green Cross has, and we're actually doing. And actually just having good communication as a team, like how we're helping each other, what we're doing important and related to what we're ultimately trying to achieve.
Now, another factor when it comes to high-performing teams is diversity. And, traditionally IT has not been a diverse industry. What practical things do you think can be done to attract more people from different backgrounds to IT roles?
Well, I think one of the things that we got to do better at is clearing this haze of what the IT sector does, because I think actually in IT there are so many different roles, right? There's technical roles, developers, testers, but then there's change managers, project managers, sales roles. There's many different roles that require different skill sets. And I sometimes think there's a perception you've got to be ultra technical. You almost got to be a geek and be able to code, and that's what IT is all about. And I think we've got to do a much better job showcasing the different opportunities of IT right at the school levels, and get the younger people to actually see what a real IT project, or how a real IT function actually works in business, and show people there are different roles in there that you can do. You don't have to be able to code to be involved in IT, right? And get people interested in that way, because not everyone's going to want to be a coder, but IT is so big now as a sector. We've got to do a much better job of opening that up and making people understand what those opportunities are, and then you've got to provide pathways into those roles. Now, I'm not closely involved in the education sector, and I'd love to be, but personally for me, I think thinking back many years ago when I was going through that path, I had no idea what IT would provide. And I think, knowing what I know now, I think if I could, even provide some of that view, to people coming out of high school, I think that will really help. People think about what are the opportunities and actually make a start in some of those roles.
Indeed. And it's people like you talking about it in this forum definitely provides a view on the opportunities that are out there. So, Ray, when you look back on your own career, is there anything that stands out as, a mistake that you might have made that really shaped you as a leader?
I think, mistakes or learnings, I probably come back to actually understanding and appreciating that you don't have to have all the answers. It's not possible. And as your role sort of progresses and you move into more of a management leadership role, you sometimes you feel like you should know the answer. You should have known it already, and it's actually really powerful to let go of that and actually understand, hey, look, you don't have all the answers. Things change all the time. And actually what you need is you need a way to go and find the answers, right? And come back in a timely manner to help solve problems. And whether you're a technical analyst or a CIO, I think it's the same. It's the same all the way through. And once I let go of that, it not only helps you solve the problems and get the right answer, it de-stresses you a lot. And I think for me that's one of the biggest learnings that I've got, and it's just having a good involvement with the business stakeholders you work with, and saying, I don't know that right now. But I'll sure find that out and come back with the right answer on that.
Absolutely. So that's something you've learned along the way. Is there any career advice that you've been given that has been really useful?
No, I don't know if I've been given a lot of good advice in the past, but I think call it advice or learnings as part of that too is I think I've always got this saying that don't be a seagull manager. Don't just swoop in now and again and saying, well, where's this at? I think it's important to now contribute to the work that your teams are doing, contribute to projects, and be prepared to roll up your sleeve, right? No matter if you're CIO or whatever, sometimes you've got to get into the weeds and help the team through that. Because if you don't appreciate the problems you're trying to solve, you're too disconnected to that. And how are you supposed to make effective decisions if you don't understand the pain sometimes? And sometimes problems are just really hard, and the team would appreciate if you roll up your sleeve and help. Right. And so, to come go live, sit with your team on a Sunday evening, and buy them coffees if you can't do anything, right. And support it and actually be there when problems arise to help with that. So, for me, I think the biggest learning for any aspiring, leader is be prepared to roll your sleeves up and work with your teams on solving problems.
And finally then, Ray, what's important to you in the months ahead?
Yeah, I think you hear a lot about what's going on in health. So we are a health organisation, and there's no question for us. We've got workforce challenges, particularly in healthcare, that we're trying to solve. This new Health New Zealand entity is starting to take shape now, and we as an organisation we're trying to stay close to that and seeing how do we actually be involved in that and navigating through that, and as we come out of COVID, particularly for healthcare, all the problems, the challenges and opportunities that we had in 2019 are the same again, right? And actually we've got to pull ourselves out of that COVID mind frame and look ahead now and think about how do what should we be doing? What are our priorities now, and what do our customers want? And the age-old problem that we've had in IT is the shortage of skilled IT staff. We continue to have those challenges, and what can we do about it? It's it does have an impact on our ability to deliver and do what we want to do. So how do we solve that problem? How do we be a little bit creative about that? Whether that be flexible working or whatever. But I think from an IT perspective, that continues to be an issue. And in healthcare, everything's changing in healthcare, and it's about focusing on a couple of things that are important short term, while we try and figure out long term what does that really mean for the sector.
Well, it's certainly been a challenging time, and I have no doubt that the next few months will certainly be as challenging, but interesting. Ray Liu, General Manager for IT at Green Cross Health, thank you so much for joining us on CIO Leadership Live today.